Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this edition of Born Political. I'm your host, Joe Cruz. If you missed the last show, you missed the first show. In Born Political, I described why I came up with the name in the last show, and I'm going to give you a quick review of why I did it because I think it's important. I think every human being has a political part of their being, whether it's, it doesn't really matter. You're always kind of advocating for yourself, which makes us politicians in a certain way. And last week, I promised to dig down with the guest to figure out who Joe Cruz was. And I asked my mom and interviewed her. It was great. I got a chance to ask my mother a lot of great questions that I would have never thought about hadn't I interviewed her. And maybe you learned a little bit about me. And I hope as I interview guests now and in the future that you kind of understand where I get my positions from and where I come from. And I think that's important, especially in a day of division that I think that we're in. A lot of people, I was telling my guest before as we were talking, that there's sometimes very, very mean things. I am a state representative. Christine Conley, we share almost a district. We're right next to each other. And some of the things that you'll see folks on Facebook write, not just about us, about all politicians, about people that are out there, a lot of them trying to make a difference, just being put in a box by people with easy snaring comments. I want to get into the bottom of how people got to where they were. This guest that I'm about to introduce you to is wildly popular. When I ran my first time, he was able to knock some doors with me, and I was actually really humbled because I thought I knew a lot of people. I thought that everyone in town kind of may know who I was because I may have coached a kid in basketball, or I was a town councilor and I was RTM member. I thought maybe somehow I had a connection. But overwhelmingly, when we went door to door, this guest just knew a lot of people. It's funny because the position that he ran for and won is a political position because you got elected. But in the end, I want to dig in a little bit to the position he won because it was a probate judge, which to me, after speaking with him, is absolutely not political. They deal with a lot of different things concerning some very touchy issues, and it's very personal, and I learned a lot from him. So without further ado, I'm going to bring my guest on here right now, former probate judge, Nick Kepple. We're going to call him Attorney Nick Kepple tonight because he is a retired probate judge. Nick, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Joe. Delightful to be here with you.
Yeah, so I'm excited because, I asked my mom what her life was about and why she thought she had her political views and where she got them from. And a lot of it stemmed back to her upbringing. She didn't have a lot of money. Our family wasn't the richest of families, but she was also from a family of 9, which created all these different directions that you're going in. Who is Nick Kepple? Nick Kepple's family. Where are you from? Are you guys local or?
I was born at Lawrence Memorial Hospital, but we lived in Groton in Paquonic Bridge when I in my first 5 years, and then we moved to Stonington. My dad worked at EB, and my mom was mostly a housewife until her later years, and then she started volunteering at first the Wesley Library, then she was the librarian in Stonington. But yeah, grew up in Paquonic Bridge, and then the rest of my childhood in Stonington.
Yeah, and then brothers and sisters?
I'm one of 5. I'm the middle child. I have...
that's 2 in a row. 2 guests in a row, middle child.
An older sister, Polly, who we called the Queen of Love and Beauty. She was the only daughter. And then 4 boys. My brother Pierce, myself, my brother Mark, and my youngest brother Peter.
Yeah, so being in the middle, I'm a middle child too. My mother was middle of 9, you're middle of 5. This is funny because you're maybe we call this the Born Political middle child show. But do you think that had anything to do with maybe your political views or your outlook? Because you have the older brother and you have the younger brother, you're kind of expected to know certain things and not certain things.
Yeah, I understand, though I have not researched, done the reading on it, but I do believe that birth order does make a difference. And I'm sure that being in the middle did affect my perspective. You end up being the mediator, which is probably one of the reasons I got into law and to some extent politics. You want to help settle issues and bring people together. So I'm sure it made a difference.
Yeah. And so you graduate high school. We talked off air. I didn't realize how much you had done volunteering. You worked for Dodd's campaign for a while, but graduating high school and then which college would you go to college?
Went to St. Bernard's.
St. Bernard.
Sister and brother both went to St. Bernard's. So I was a bit of a troublemaker actually when I was in elementary school. My first grade teacher actually, and my mom kept the report card, said, "Wherever you find trouble on the playground or the classroom, you're sure to find Nikki." And so I was labeled early on. But my mom felt if I went to St. Bernard's, I might behave myself a little better. But anyway, went to St. Bernard's, liked it a lot. Went to Assumption College in Worcester, studied political science, then got my master's degree in political science from Drew University, then started a PhD program at UConn in higher education administration. And it was while I was in that PhD program that I started volunteering in Chris Dodd's, then U.S. Representative, Congressman Chris Dodd's Norwich congressional office. And
Wow.
that's really when my interest in, government crystallized.
And but you're also an attorney. So where was that school? And
Yeah, you
do a lot, Nick.
I know, but I didn't go to law school until my mid-30s. So I worked for Dodd for 4 years, and I worked for a National Science Foundation-funded nonprofit called the New England Innovation Group, whose mission was to help state and local governments throughout New England make more effective use of science and technology. Did that for 4 years, worked for Analysis and Technology for a couple of years, and then I started law school in the mid-'80s, and then ran for first selectman while I was in law school. Lost my first time, but got on the Board of Selectmen in Stonington, won my second time in 1987, and then the voters realized in 1989 I would be a better attorney than a first selectman, and so they voted me out of office. And then since then I've been an attorney, first at Sussman Shapiro in London. Then I had my own practice in Pawcatuck, and then 2 years ago I went back to and rejoined Sussman Shapiro. So that's where I practice now, out of our office in Pawcatuck.
Well, I thank everybody for their service. If anyone that's ever served on a RTM or Wetlands Board, First Selectman, it doesn't really matter to me. I think it means that you're a person that tried to go out and help your community make something better, or you saw something that you thought you could make better. It's always exciting to talk to people because you can learn things from other people. And when I think about the judgeship, the probate judge, we appoint judges all the time as a legislature. That's part of my job, one of our biggest jobs. And there's a lot of animosity, a lot of pain. When we walk into the legislature and we're going to nominate judges, if you're a judge, you're in the middle of someone getting their kids or not getting their kids. You're in the middle of somebody having the right to make decisions for another person. These are so personal and can be so volatile that I think some of the most emotion that we see at the legislature is when someone feels like they were wronged in a court, or a judge didn't understand, or they made a wrong decision, and the immense responsibility that must be. And I really, was shocked to have a friend that we all think we have the friend that's completely all set and they have no problems. That my friend had passed, and the will was an absolute disaster. And we saw the confusion that it creates amongst everyone that's left behind. I got nervous. I have a young grandson. I have a daughter. I wanted to make sure things were going to be handled properly. I had no idea that it would have went to my mother and father and then to my brother and sister before it ever would have made it to my daughter and grandson, because she's not my biological daughter, and it had to be spelled out. So speaking with you and seeing the pain that people go through, and your passion for being a judge and the people that you help. That's why I think when we knocked on doors, the people just love you, because I'm sure you've helped them in ways that they probably weren't expecting. But there's also probably a group of people that think maybe you didn't make the best decision. And I mean, that's a tough job. And thank you for that service. You're retired from it now, but what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, thank you. It was a gift. Serving for 10 years, serving the people from the four towns of Stonington, North Stonington, Ledger, and Groton. It was the best job I ever had. But you're right. it had its challenges because, I don't think a lot of people appreciate the complexity of what the probate court does. The fact that you deal with not just the transfer of assets when people pass, but liberty, whether you're going to be in control of your life through conservatorships, and also parenting. So transfer of all your assets, whether you have the freedom to be in charge of your life, and parenting. Those are three of the biggest issues, in our lives. And it was an honor and a privilege to serve in that role. And yes, I'm sure some people were disappointed, but in the decisions I made. But one of the wonderful things about the probate court system, which has been around for 300 plus years, is it's a neighborhood court. I wasn't in a robe. I'm not up on a dais. It's approachable, and people felt comfortable there. Lots and lots of our proceedings were just with people. Oftentimes there were lawyers involved, and lawyers play a key role with many estates. But I was dealing with a lot of people directly, and I found that so long as, generally speaking, you listen to people and gave them a chance to be heard, that's most of the time what people are looking for. So I enjoyed it completely. The court deals with not just what we call decedents' estates, but conservatorships, guardianships. A lot of people have no real idea how many children's matters the court gets involved with. We have a regional children's court in London, where there's staff specifically trained, social workers trained to deal with children's matters. So we deal with adoptions and termination of parental rights, guardianships. So the probate court is really, to use a term, deals with cradle to grave issues. But this region is blessed with some incredibly talented staff at the probate court.
Your replacement, right?
And then now
Has been wonderful.
has the benefit of a terrific human being and lawyer, and now probate judge in Judge Lehman, who is already doing a terrific job. So yeah, and it's a lot busier than people realize too. We would deal with about 800 files a year, so it's one of the busier courts in the state. But it was a joy to do because you were working with great staff. We were able to help a lot of people, help them sort through the system, and also very informative.
Yeah.
I didn't realize before I was in the job just how fascinating. We had, for instance, a case of a person who I saw on the agenda that there was a trust, and it involved someone who'd been killed in the workplace, and the trust was set up for the person's kids. So I won't go into the details, but basically there was a human trafficking element. This person had been recruited for the job from overseas, and then her passport was taken from her. And who would think that here in Groton you'd have a murder and human trafficking, and all within the confines of this trust accounting. So there was oftentimes some very fascinating backstories to the files.
It's amazing. It's amazing what people don't know what happens under our noses. The opiate epidemic comes to my mind. My wife and I, finding out about that, and probate judges have come in a lot in our state and in our country because of that issue alone. With the amount of folks getting addicted to opiates and taking away rights or trying to help people in a certain way. And I know it's very limited on what you can do there. But I go back to how we appoint judges. A lot of people don't realize that, but this is the one position you have is not appointed. It's something that you actually run for, which does make it political by nature because you are running and asking people for votes. Christine Conley and a lot of my colleagues are on the judicial committee, and for me to be able to call them and ask them their advice, because I can tell you, if you walk into the halls of the legislature and you walk by folks that go out there and spend day after day after day telling you not to reappoint Judge X, Y, or Z, because they took my kids away wrongly and the passion is there. But fortunately, because they do committee work, I get to speak with Chris Conley and say, hey, all those people out there asking about this judge or asking me not to re-support a nomination, where is that? And she says, she'll be very honest with me. They do these interviews for hours and hours and hours, especially if it's someone that's getting a lot of negative feedback. And a lot of times it all boils down to the judge making a decision where someone didn't have their kids or wasn't awarded whatever they wanted. And I think what people need to remember is you're just deciding on in applying laws that the legislature, that we the legislature made. And it comes down to a law question. But the compassion has to be there too, because you're dealing with those emotions. But the law's the law, right? And in a lot of those cases where people are upset, it can only, and if you really hate it, you have to change the law.
Exactly. We learned early in our training for the probate court that probate courts are called a statutory court. We only have the power that's given to us by the statute, and so there's a whole section of the general statutes that deals with probate courts, and we have to follow them to the letter. And yes, sometimes people aren't happy, but
yeah, it's not always.
But there were a lot of people who were grateful that the court was there, whether it's name changes. And I never would have anticipated, by the way, who would think that name changes would be so controversial? But we had some knockdown, drag out battles over name changes. And in that instance, the challenge there is there's very little law. There's basically one case that says we're supposed to do what's in the best interest of the child when we consider name changes. But I never anticipated that there would be so much controversy about name, where, a mom gives birth, the relationship between she and the father doesn't work out. So after a few years, she wants to change the name, but the father wants to keep the name. Hard to know when it's supposed to look out for the best interest of the child. What's the right thing to do, because and it's all on a case-by-case basis. You apply the facts to the law. But
you could see that being an issue. I mean, I think in our family, there's a certain, and a lot of, the tradition-wise, you have a baby and the father gets to name it after, and that seems to just be the way it happens. But there's, that other parent, the mom that says, hey, I've been raising them. Why not name it after me and my family?
Right.
And I understand how passionate that, the force behind that. It's happened in our family. It's probably happened in most families, actually. But when I did meet your passion for talking about fairness and probate, it struck me. In fact, when you were the probate judge, you actually did a docuseries at a library because you felt that folks were so uninformed about the court. I think ultimately, whenever you own a position, that you try to make sure people understand your position. Even when I talk about how we vote on judges, I think people need to know how we come to the decisions and what we're responsible for. And I think you did a great job on that. Going to the library, bringing in other lawyers that could help describe, what they may go through if they're going to get their parental rights away, or if they're just making a simple will. But I think you had great success. I mean, I know you're proud of it. It's something that you did, and tell me a little bit about that, going to libraries and making sure people knew what to expect. I think sometimes taking the guesswork out of things is the easiest way to get to people.
Yeah, from when I first ran, I wanted to make educating people about the probate court process a priority. So right in my initial campaign material, I included, reference to, the probate court system's website. And then early on in my 10 years, people encouraged us to try to educate the public. And we worked with the Southeastern Connecticut Attorneys and Financial Planners Association, and agreed to create this 4-part series that we did at 6 different libraries. So there were, in each of the communities, there are 6 communities in the 4 towns that the Southeastern Connecticut Regional Probate District serves. So we did, over a 2-year period, we did 24 sessions, all of them very well attended, some standing room only. each for an hour of presentations and then another hour of questions and answers. And people would have to be shutting the lights off to get people to go home because people really, really liked it. And they taped it, Groton TV, Groton Municipal TV taped it, and I think it still is available. We also made CDs that are in each of the libraries, so if people can still go back and use those. But people really appreciated the information. And it was called Demystifying Probate and Estate Planning because, probate and estate planning are a challenge because for a lot of people, they only deal with it one time in their lives at the end of their lives. And so a lot of people are unprepared. And then like any process, there's forms and a timetable. And for a lot of people, it's a labyrinth. It's just a challenge because they're unfamiliar with it. So we, well over 1,000 people attended the 24 sessions. It was just, an amazing.
Well, it says a lot about what your program was and that people trusted you and they wanted they knew it was going to be good information and correct. And then I encourage everyone to go to the library and pick it up because if you want to know about it, the laws really haven't changed when it comes to probate. And when they do, they're very incremental. They're not changing things that wouldn't probably 90% of the stuff you talked about 2 years ago when you did it would still apply today. And it's only a half-hour show. I do want to talk to you a little bit about our political climate because I think it's part of the show. And what I'm really trying to get to is, how do we get past this bipartisanship? I mean, the partisanship in our country, not bipartisanship, because you're dealing with and maybe not always solving problems within families, because I know that sometimes they're very, very tough problems and they end up not talking to each other. We're seeing that in families now, but not because of children's rights or because of a divorce, but sometimes because of just politics. And if you're a Democrat or Republican, and I think we're in this paralysis situation where, before we used to just say, well, it's just the fringe. And it just seems like, I talk to people all the time and say, well, I just don't talk to X, Y, and Z anymore because of politics. And I mean, I know as a judge, you probably would say, well, talk about the 90% of the things you guys agree with, and let's try to patch the 10%. Is there any kind of thought as to how we get past this? I mean, this is a huge question of the day of all time right now, but is there any thoughts on that?
Well, I guess my fundamental thought is that we need to go back to why government exists, which is to serve the people. And I think people need to realize how much can be accomplished if we work together. And I got involved in politics because my parents did different types of community service. My dad was super active in Alcoholics Anonymous, and so he helped people in one way. My mom, volunteered, at libraries, and then I saw when I worked in Dodd's office how government can help people, and then through my lawyering and one of the things I do in my law practice is I represent multiple towns, and so I help the machinery of local government work to serve people. And I just think if we rather than try to advance an agenda, if we all focused on how can we make whatever level of government, state government, local government, federal government, how can we make it do its job better? And also realize, I think that people can accomplish more than they realize by being involved. And I think if folks just got involved with a focus not to advance a particular political agenda, but it got involved to achieve something specific, whether it's a community garden or better schools or whatever preserving. The Thames River Basin, whatever it might be, that bike paths,
and
positive,
and
positive, and I think there are people of multiple political persuasions who share an interest in achieving things and having these positive benefits for the community. And I think
for me to go to all these events I get to go to, since I got elected, you go to all the veterans events, to really get the feeling for what's happening in our community. We don't go to them just because we're elected. We go to them to show the people that we support what they're doing. And I think overwhelmingly, people don't understand how much good is happening. By human nature, I think what you just mentioned about the groups that are doing, every group, everything you mentioned, there's a group that's pushing for exactly what you were just talking about. And the only way it will make the news is if something terribly goes wrong in that group, or someone, the treasurer took money from that group, or two people got in a fight in that group. The what comes to mind now, it made national news, the Glastonbury parent that punched a Glastonbury Board of Education member, but there were probably 2,000 other Board of Education meetings that night in our country, and I think people have to remember that the news is there to tell you the rare, the what's not happening everywhere, right?
And when I went to see the Stonington field hockey team compete for the state championship at Weathersfield High School, there were like 30 volunteer parents, running the snack bar for that. And you were saying in our recent conversation we had about the group that gets together 4 times a year to give out $10,000 that alters the people's lives. There are people in those rooms who are Democrats and Republicans and unaffiliated, but they're dedicated to doing some good, to achieving something positive in real terms. And I think we just have to, like you say, recognize that loads and loads of things like that are going on. It's not all rancor and people pitted against animosity. There's lots of wonderful things going on. Roll up your sleeves, get involved. There's so many wonderful things to be involved with. And the big message I have, based on my life experiences, it's astonishing what we can accomplish by working together. People think, oh, I can't make a difference. It's so untrue. An individual can make an enormous difference. I know because, I've been involved in a lot of different things, and
you're one of those people.
Well, through the work by teaming up my energies with a lot of other people, we've been able to achieve a lot of things.
So I look to achieve some more things. Being elected in the last, this will be my running again for an election this November coming up. I've been very comfortable in the 2 districts that I've had and owned. I call it the Joe Dela Cruz hometown districts because I was raised in New London, been in New London my whole life. But here I find myself going from New London to Groton after this census and the political changes. Now I am going to be in Stonington, which I'm super excited about. I mean, I will still always support New London. I think that's the city center for our region where all people go to get services, and I will support that. I'm extremely excited to learn about Stonington. I knew through Groton because of the Board of Ed and all the other stuff I did. But and to have a partner like you to help me understand Stonington, I'm excited. We have about 30 seconds left, Nick. So
just say we are over the moon excited to have you represent us in Stonington. We can't wait to have you serve us, and I can't wait to help have you meet some people in Stonington. And I think Stonington's going to be exceptionally happy that they have you as their advocate in Hartford. So can't wait for it.
Former probate judge, my friend Nick Kepple. I want to thank him for coming on the show. Next week we'll have. We're figuring out guests as we go. If there's somebody that that would be a good guest on our show, or you want to see them interviewed locally, I'd be more than happy to do it. Just submit their name. I have my email right up there. You can do that, or just give us a call. Till then, Born Political. We'll see you a week from now. Happy. We'll see you before the holidays. So I'm going to say happy holidays next week. Great seeing you guys. Thanks for watching.